How's everybody doing? Good. So I'm going to take off my jacket. So again, my name is Khalid, Saleh, CEO of Invesp. We've been doing conversion optimization since 2006, the second company in North America to do conversion optimization. And over the years, we've worked with companies both large and small. We continue to have a small company program for startups, for companies trying to figure out how to generate more sales from their website. And some of our kind of largest clients, eBay, Target, Special Olympics, O'Reilly, many kind of the large brands. So let's see. So here's the title of my presentation, Conversion Optimization. How can you obliterate the competition? So when I was showing this to my partner, she's like, obliterate? That's a big promise. But I will show you a system. If you follow it systematically, you will stand out from the competition. A step-by-step process. And it's funny, every time I show this title, there are some people who raise their hands. They're like, well, you know, we don't have competition. And I always tell them, well, if you think that way, you got to rethink. You got to change your mindset because you're always competing, correct? Your visitor either converts, buys from your website if you're an e-commerce website, or gives you his information if you're a lead gen or subscription website, or he decides to walk away. You're not good enough for them, you know, or for doing business with them. So let me start. I have about 5 different sections I'm gonna go through. Section 3 is the process, but before I start, I want you kind of to understand something about conversion optimization. Quick show of hands. Quick show of hands. How many here have heard of conversion optimization or practiced it before? Very nice. How many here has done A/B testing? Very nice. Okay, very good. That makes. I gave a presentation recently in Istanbul, Turkey, and there's about 1,000 people attending in the largest digital marketing conference that they have. So I asked the same question. And I said, well, how many people, have done A/B testing? I had only one hand risen. So I thought the audience was a bit shy. I'm like, really, guys, come on. And most people did not attend. So that, makes me want to switch the presentation a little bit. So my first point is that average is losing. What do I mean by that? What do you think the most common question I hear when people see or hear that I do conversion optimization? What do you guys think? The most common question that people walk up to me, afterwards, ask me, what do you think? This is audience participation segment 1. Come on, guys. Let me hear a question. What do you think? What comes to your mind? Sorry?
So
what is winning? Okay, that's one question I hear. Another question? I definitely get asked that question quite a bit. Still though, I like it. What do you think? Sorry? How do I do it? Okay. Let me show you the most common question. This question drives about 10 to 15,000 visitors to our website on monthly basis. What is the average website conversion rate? That's what people ask. And if you Google that, we're probably either the first or second result, and we've been there since 2007. What is the average website conversion rate? And that's a very good question to some extent, but I do think that it is the wrong question to ask. Because if you're comparing yourself to competition, you're putting a seal to what you can do. Eventually, people walk up to me after the presentation and they say, great presentation, so what's the average website conversion rate? And I tell them, on average really varies by country. So in the US, we're seeing an average website conversion rate about 3%. In the UK, it used to be around 5% in 2016. It dropped to about 3.5% conversion rate. That's for e-commerce. If you're doing a SaaS, it's about 10%. If you're doing lead gen, it's about 15%. It really, though, varies. And we track this data over many different websites. So if I'm talking about e-commerce, we're talking about anywhere between, I would say about 1,000 websites that we're tracking. So it really varies because there are winners and there are losers, and then there are websites that are in the middle. However, your aim should not be to outperform the competition. Your aim is to provide such value to your visitors that competition becomes completely irrelevant. And this is challenging. When was the last time you visited a website, you shopped on the website, next day you went to the office and you looked at your colleague, your friend, and you said, you know what? I shopped on this website yesterday and it was such an amazing experience. It rarely happens. It really does. Because even if you provide an amazing experience to your visitors, they get used to it, correct? It's called the keynote effect. About a month or two later, they expect that amazing experience. And now they're looking for something new, for something more. Okay, so we always like to plot website traffic versus conversion rate. And what we see is that for most websites, when they're just starting out with driving traffic to their visitors, if they are a bit focused, they're able to generate high conversion rates. But as they increase the traffic, as they drive more traffic, more paid ads, more social media, more content marketing, more SEO, what happens is that their conversion rates drop. However, there are the few and far in between, the exceptional websites that are able to drive large amounts of traffic to their sites, and they're able to also achieve higher conversion rates. How do they do it? That's the question of my presentation. Okay. So there are some realities that you want to understand about website conversion rate. So, sorry, it seems like there is a mess between a Mac to a PC. So lots of times when we talk about conversion rates and trying to increase conversion rates, people are focused on the landing page, they're focused on the website. But the reality, conversion optimization is focused on every touch point that the visitor has. I'll give you a kind of an example of how different companies compete. If you ship a package in the US, there's different services available to you to ship. So you can use USPS, which is kind of the postal service, and you log in there and you give them the tracking number. And typically the response is like, maybe somebody shipped something to you? We don't know. Versus, if you go to the second level, which is FedEx, and you ship something with FedEx, it says, well, yes, somebody shipped something to you on Monday. We hope it's going to arrive on Wednesday. Okay, not very specific. Versus if you go to UPS, that's kind of the third level of being customer-centric. It tells you John Smith dropped off the package at 8:14 a.m. The package left our warehouse, at 10:26, a.m. Now it's in this shipping center, and it's going to be arriving tomorrow at 3:20. Nice. You want to take it one more notch up? Amazon. What does Amazon show you? Our delivery guy isn't actually in front of your house, or he just entered your house and now he's delivering the package. You see the different levels of specificity and the customer centricity that those companies have. So your focus should be on the customer. Lots of times when people try to increase the website conversion rates, what they do is they say, let's do more and more A/B testing. However, I can tell you, for those of you who have done A/B testing, that is an approach that's probably 3 years from now, you will see fails, because most A/B tests do not generate an increase in conversions. So focus A/B testing will always wins. Lots of times when people talk about conversion rate optimization, they talk about different creatives. Let's try a different color. Let's try a different layout. And what they are doing, they're not doing conversion optimization. They are doing what I call template tweaking. They're just tweaking their template. Yeah. And conversion optimization becomes this exercise of, well, let's move things around and hope something would actually generate an uplift in conversions. That does not work. You need to have a process, and you need to be very focused on your execution. CRO is a cost center. It's not. Any type of marketing that you do, unless it's measured very carefully, it's a cost center. If you know how to measure it really and analyze the ROI, you become an investment. And by the way, this is regardless to the type of marketing that you do, whether it's conversion rate optimization, whether it's content marketing, whether it's social media. If you're not able to show exactly the ROI, when times are great, you'll have your job. When times are not so great, people, kind of top management, starts looking very carefully. what's the money that I'm making from this activity? So always measure, always show the ROI. Sometimes showing the ROI is extremely difficult. It's never impossible. So you just gotta have to sit down and think through it. Finally, what I hear from people, average is average. No, average is losing. In the old days, we used to say that big fish eats the small fish, correct? That's the way it worked. You know, big companies eat small companies. However, things have changed nowadays, because now the small, the effective, is able to eat the big. And we see what, all those small companies, startups that are really very quick, very effective, they're able to really conquer markets, establish themselves, and beat well-established companies. If you look at top Fortune 500 companies between 1970 and 2018, you will see that over 30 or 40 of them have gone bankrupt. You got to stop and think about that, correct? And lots of the startups that will really conquer the market in the next, probably and now we're 2018, if we're looking about 2030, probably I would say half of them do not exist nowadays. So we got to think through that. So, a couple of takeaways. If you're not able to increase your conversion rates by 30% year after year, year to year, that's kind of the goal that we set. And by the way, this is a very conservative goal. You really need to focus on conversion optimization. Second thing, check which playing field are you playing in. Look at your competitors. Are they doing A/B testing? Are they successful? Are they seeing increase in traffic and engagement metrics and conversions? Because it's extremely important to understand where you are playing. Number two. So, second thing that I hear from people, whenever they come to us and they say, hey, we want to hire you, and I hear this on calls again and again, hey, we would like to pick the low-hanging fruit. And if you think about it from a sales perspective, my sales guys love to hear that. It's like, oh yeah, the low-hanging fruit, yes, we can, because they're promising something that we're not necessarily able to deliver on. So I always thought about the low-hanging fruit. As a matter of fact, I have a blog post coming up that's there's no low-hanging fruit over here. So if you look for that, I'm always very weary of that. What do I mean by that? When you look at a website or a campaign, there's conversion optimization or optimization opportunities, correct? However, you want to be able to classify those optimization opportunities. And there's different levels of optimization opportunities. Sometimes a website comes to us and we look at the website and there are just lots of bugs in it, or the design is a bit outdated. So that's kind of the very first thing that you want to fix. The second thing that you want to fix is what I call usability issues. The users are expecting to use the website in a particular way, and your website is not giving them that experience. That's kind of the second level of items that you want to fix. The third level is conversion issues, and there's a big difference, by the way, between a usability issue and a conversion issue. Now, lots of times people that practice conversion optimization, what do they spend their time on? They spend their time on fixing bugs on a website or fixing usability issues, but they're not focused on conversion optimization. What is the big difference between usability versus conversion optimization? It is also extremely important. Usability, when you fix usability issues on the website, you're basically making the website easy for the users to interact with. Usability, when I go to a website that has been optimized for usability, my thinking is, well, yeah, I can buy from this website. I can buy from this website. That is tremendously different than working with conversion issues. Conversion issues deal not with top-of-mind issues, but they deal with psychology, with persuasiveness. And when you optimize your website for conversion, guess what? It's not about, yeah, I can buy on this website, or I can buy from this website. It's about, I want to buy from this website. Huge difference between the two. And it's a huge difference in conversion rates between a 2% conversion rate and a 10% conversion rate. And I think lots of times people focus on usability and bug issues because those are easy to discover. And you have to fix them. But those are not going to take you to the 8, 10, 12, 14% conversion rate. If you're an e-commerce website, we have a SaaS company that just launched in Chicago in January of 2017. SaaS actually sells now 2 products. Skincare for men. I still remember when they signed up with us and they said, hey, do you use any skincare for you? I'm like, no, my face is great. He's like, oh, you got to try our product. And we've spent the first 6 months working with them on usability and bug issues. Their revenue went from about $100,000 to about $500,000 in 6 months. When we moved on from usability to conversion, their revenue last month, their annual revenue as of last month jumped to about $7.5 million. Huge difference. And that's really when you want to get there, that's when you want to focus on. So what do? When you look at the issues on a website, you want to classify them between bugs, usability, and conversion. You want to look at this visual representation. Sometimes there are just so many bugs and the design is so outdated that you say, you know what, instead of me fixing it and wasting your time and doing A/B testing, let's just go for a complete redesign. It just makes perfect sense. Now, lots of conversion optimization specialists that work in a field like that, they wouldn't recommend to do a redesign. You know why? Because every month, they'll try and fix small things and they'll show you wins. But the reality of it's not a game that we're trying to to play together. It's kind of a relationship, a long-term relationship. We're better off just starting from scratch, spending a couple months doing a redesign and launching a new website and then focusing on usability and conversion issues. When you see that about 25% of the issues are bugs, 25% of the issues are usability, and you have about 40% versus 40% bugs, usability, and 20% in conversion. That's when you want to look at is heavy fixing for the website. Also another model is where you still have lots of usability issues. There's heavy fixing. When you have a website like this one, where there's very little bugs, there's some usability issues, there are lots of conversion issues, that's when you start focusing on CRO. Now, the last example is where you have very little bugs, very little usability, but your opportunity to focus on CRO is even larger. That is a significant opportunity. However, by the way, significant opportunity means significant amount of work. Okay, so how do you, where do you go from there? Kind of things for you to think about. You need to identify the issues on the website, kind of the very first point. You need to know where you stand, and then you do a visual representation, just like I showed you. And then based on that, based on that, you decide should I go for a redesign? Do I need to fix the bugs on my website, the usability issues, or do I really focus on CRO? Number 3, focus matters. I'll give you a tale of 2 clients. They signed up with us at the same time. One of them was a one-man operation marketing department. The other one is one of the top 10 websites in the world. I'll show you kind of what happened with those 2 clients. So the first clients conducted what I call the most expensive A/B test in the world. They signed up with us. It took them about 6 months to launch a single website. The goal was to achieve a 20% in the website conversion rate. Humongous marketing department. Their conversion optimization team, their team is about probably 5 times larger than my company altogether. And we went through the optimization process with them. 6 months later, for that single A/B test, we did 14 rounds, basically, of really kind of, optimizing the concept, getting approval from product, getting approval from marketing, getting approval from the optimization. The CTO is taking a look at it, and he wants to change it. And then before we launched, their CMO came and gave us some feedback. Ran a single A/B test, no uplift whatsoever. Now imagine after we invested so much time, I have to sit with the CTO, he's the sponsor for the project, and we've diced and sliced the data. This is a website that receives, in a day they do about 10 million visitors. So, the amount of data that you have is just tremendous. So we try to say, okay, let's see for new visitors, let's see for logged visitors, let's see for visitors coming from Google. How about visitors coming? Nothing. It simply did not win. So they paid for our services for 6 months, nothing to show for. Put that client aside for a second, and let's jump into our second client. Second client, it used to be 3-man, small startup operation. One person ran all of their digital marketing. He did the PPC, the SEO, the content, CRO at that point. They just threw it at him as well. His conversion rate was 1.5%. They sell basically mobile accessories for your cell phones. We ran in the same period. And it's always interesting when you see kind of the big, the big budget and the small budget kind of like competing. We ran in the same period 17 A/B tests for them. 8 of them delivered significant increases in conversion rates. The new website conversion rate after 6 months had jumped from 1.5 to 2.7 to 0.7 conversion rate. By the way, this same client came back to us last year, and now they have a conversion optimization department and a team of 8-person team. Their conversion rate when they left us was around 3%. When they came back last year, they've done optimization on their own. They had jumped to 8% conversion rate, and they said, "Hey, we're stuck at the 8%. How can we go? How can we go more than that?" The question I ask myself is like, why? How can big budget lose compared to small budget? You have like kind of our expertise and our teams going in both places. In one, we achieve amazing results, and the other, we have to sit in front of the CTO for an hour and explain to him why we did not achieve any result. And this is how our process was born. This is the process that I'm going to share with you to really be able to achieve those consistent results in conversion. Okay. But again, I want to emphasize the point. We live in a time where everything has been commoditized. Commodities are commoditized, correct? But even goods and services have been commoditized. Everybody is the same. I can buy, let's say I'm looking to buy, SEO services, just as an example. Or let's say, let's say in the services industry. There's so many companies that offer, correct, digital marketing, SEO. Let's say even I want to buy CRO services, conversion rate optimization. When we first started, we're the second company. Nowadays, there are thousands of companies that offer CRO services. So how do you stand out from the crowd? If you're an e-commerce website, I can buy the same thing from Amazon, from Target, from eBay. And this is a challenge, by the way, that we deal with quite a bit because some of our larger clients, they compete with Amazon. So how do you actually sit and explain to them, how do we stand out and how, in the mind of the customer? So the competition now is about experience. That's what you need to always think about. It always comes down to the customer and the customer experience. We used to have another fancy graph, and my team just was like, upload this new presentation because we have an office in Istanbul, Turkey. So, and they said, hey, this relates to what we do. I'm like, sure, I'm like, but the other graph, people understand it. This kind of comes from Quicken. They're like, no, this is nicer. Okay, so here is the process that we do. It's called the SHIP method. Scrutinize, hypothesize, implement, and propagate. I'm going to go quickly through it, but I hope at least some of the items will get stuck in your head. So when you go back to the office, you will think about them and think how you implement them. So let's start with the very first step, scrutinize. So the idea from scrutinize, ultimately, after you go through this phase, is to uncover conversion opportunities on your website. And you start with what we call experience identification. Yes, we want to optimize a landing page. Yes, we want to optimize a home page. Yes, we want to optimize our pricing page or a product page or a cart page. But before we jump into that, we need to ask the question, what is the visitor coming to our website to do? What's the experience that the visitor wants? And we give the visitor what they want, they give us what we want. It's as simple as that. So ultimately, your goal is to do experience optimization. Yes, you're optimizing different pages as you go through the process, but it's about optimizing the whole experience. How would this look like whenever you're done? And I would highly, highly recommend Googling something called the customer moments. There is a white paper by Google on customer moments. They're using it to sell their PPC, their AdWords. I forgot the name, whether it's Google Ads. Now that's what they call it. But it really outlines the importance of understanding the different moments, how visitors come to your website. You want to understand those moments. Somebody searching for an urgent care on their website on desktop during the day is a lot different than somebody searching on urgent care 11 o'clock at night, correct, using their mobile phone when they are within 1 kilometer radius from your establishment. Correct? It tells you that there's different experience, and the experience that we want to show the visitor when they land on our website is tremendously different. So we identify the different experiences that bring a visitor to our website. What's the experience? What was the visitor intent? What is the context? Where did the journey start? Where does it end? How aware they are of our brand? All these are important, very important questions to ask whenever you're doing conversion optimization. I think it's extremely important whenever you're doing SEO or PPC or social media as well. The second thing that we do is what we call an expert review. And the goal from the expert review is to bring in some people who have some background in conversion optimization and usability, and they start looking at your website to identify issues on the website. There's different methods to do an expert review. There is, within the expert review, there's UX, usability focus expert review, and then there is conversion focus expert review. So whenever you do an UX review, you can also Google whether it's the pure method or the 10 heuristics or the stress test. Those are good, well-known, established methods of identifying what? Usability issues on the website, correct? Now, when it comes to conversion optimization, completely different sets of methods. And lots of times people say, well, we'll bring some people and they'll tell us what's wrong with the website. If they're not methodical, you don't get the best output. So it's extremely important to identify what are we looking at over here, usability or conversion? We need to be asking different set of questions. So for that, for ourselves, we use the conversion framework analysis. We have a whole book actually published. You can buy it from Amazon. Or you can just go to our blog, and we have kind of like all the different principles with good examples on each one of them. You can do an expert walkthrough, or what I like to do also cognitive walkthrough. So let's say, yeah, my website is for females ages 25 to 35, working, just fresh out of college. So I put myself in the shoes of that visitor, and I say, okay, well, she's coming to check out different prices for this product. Let's say that she lands on the website using a paid ad. Let's go through that experience, her experience with our website. The challenge is, lots of times when people do this, they're so used to their website and they accept certain things that other people, other visitors, normal visitors would say, what the heck? I'm leaving. I do not like this website. So you need to be aware when you're doing a cognitive walkthrough. Here's an example of a cognitive walkthrough. Lots of times people also ask me, how many items can you identify on a website whenever you're doing a usability review or whenever you're doing a conversion review? And I give them an example. This website is a 2-page website, very simple, 2 pages. How many items can you identify on 2 pages? We've identified, and after we did the expert walkthrough, expert review, we identified close to 82 different issues that are between usability and conversion issues that we've identified. And look at all this analysis, by the way. There is another slide, just for the top navigation. People think like, oh, top navigation, let's just throw it together. No, you want to look at analytics, you want to look at data, and I'll kind of walk through some examples of that. Okay. Next thing you do is what we call qualitative research. Fancy name. It simply means talk to your users, talk to the end users, correct? Talk to users of other competing websites, talk to users who were using your product or service, who shopped on your website and are no longer shopping on your website, correct? Incredible insights come from that. There's different ways that you can do this, whether it's through online polling, through surveys, through email. If you have the time, just going out and doing face-to-face interviews, extremely insightful. And it doesn't have to be, lots of times I say this and people say, well, I don't have the budget. I'm like, no, this is so cheap. This is what I call a cup of coffee at a Starbucks, or I'll buy you a free lunch. And can I just talk to you and ask you, what do you love about our services? What did you hate? If you get to fix one thing on our website, what would it be? Collecting that data can be extremely valuable. The problem that I see is lots of times people launch polls, ask questions, but they don't know what to do with them. You want to ask, so for example, over here, we're asking people, what are you trying to do on our website? And you see kind of different answers. And based on the answers, we decide what's the next action. That's kind of the trick, correct? Because you can get lots of data, but you want to decide, what am I going to do? What's my next thing? What am I going to change on my website or on my campaigns? And notice how between mobile and desktop, they give us different answers, different experiences, because people really shop differently when they come on different devices. And sometimes asking a question and collecting data makes you want to ask more questions. A good example of this, We saw some differences in the numbers. 57% of people said, I'm not sure this is the right product for me. 32% versus, let's see over here, I'm not sure, versus 28%. No, 13% versus 28%. On mobile, people said, we're not sure. On desktop, they said, twice as much that they're not sure that this is the right product for them. So you want to look at the data and do more analysis and cross-reference the data. You want to also look at some numbers. Numbers are extremely powerful. The problem is, I always tell people, when it comes to analytics, everybody looks at analytics, correct? However, the challenge with analytics is analytics was not built with conversion optimization in mind. Analytics, especially Google Analytics, that's what popularized analytics in the minds of lots of people. It's really built with the SEO in mind. How many visitors are we getting? How many page views does the page get? What's the average time on page? What's the bounce rate? What's the exit rate? Great. But if I'm trying to increase my website conversion rate, my campaign conversion rate, my landing page conversion rate, I need to be looking at the funnel. I need to look at how people are interacting with my pages, with different elements on the page. When we first started the company, my daughter was born. So we're talking about 2005. We started about 4 or 5 months after she was born. Last year, she interned with us in the summer, which was sort of fun. I had her sitting on a desk in front of me. The most dedicated employee I've had, or intern I've had. And it's funny because she loves math and she loves numbers. And I told her, you know what? I'm going to teach you something really cool. So if you Google, conducting analytics assessments for conversion optimization, there's a kind of a standard criteria that everybody tells you to go through. And I taught my 12-year-old daughter how to go through that analytics assessment. Now, this speaks to her ability, but I think actually speaks more to how rudimentary most analytics assessments are. They're very basic. I can teach a 12-year-old how to do them. In a previous life, I used to be a software architect and software developer. And I still remember my first job also as a software developer. I had this amazing software architect that I worked for. And he had this sign on his monitor. So basically whenever we had questions, we would go to him. But he had this sign that was always kind of scared us as kind of junior developers. He said, go away or I will replace you with a script. And I was like, oh, should I ask him? Is this question going to be stupid? And he always told me, he's like, there are no stupid questions. There are stupid people asking questions. And I'm like, great, that's all you need for your morale. My point is, if your analytics assessment is so rudimentary that it could be replaced with a script, we have an issue, correct? So you need to dig deeper. You need to spend some time and listen to the data. You need to look at heat maps. You need to look at video recording. Lots of times, I see some companies, for example, offering it's like, hey, we'll give you 50,000 video recordings of visitors. And basically, it's just like mouse movement on a page. Who's going to watch 50,000 videos? I'm sorry. I can't get my team to watch 100 videos. And they'll tell me, well, yeah, we're done. But really, it's about sitting down and trying to look for insights from those videos. Heat maps, they look like a pretty picture, but after you've seen 1,000 heat maps, they all look the same. What are the insights? What are the different click maps are telling you on your website? Here's an example, of you want to segment the data. So we're looking, for example, mobile, source, medium, the type of browser, trying to figure out, what are some of the issues that the website suffers from, and what we should focus on. Competitive analysis. You have to be a bit careful with competitive analysis. Sometimes people frown upon this, but I think you need to look at your competitors, of what they are doing. You can learn from them. Do not copy them. I've worked for a company that competed with Amazon back in '99. Whatever Amazon released, we did the same thing. Amazon converted at 17%. We converted at 1%, no matter what we did, And it just goes because we did not really understand that there is more to the process of increasing conversion rates than just merely copying some of the big players. Usability testing. This is also extremely insightful. Bringing some users, and you can do usertesting.com. There's lots of websites that do user testing. I'm a bit weary of those websites. Who here had used one of those usability testing websites? Quick show of hands. Anybody? Only single person. What do you think of it?
It's all right. There's professional testers on there.
Thank you. they've done it so long that I'm not getting a real user. Like, like you think that you've hired a usability expert, correct? And I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need a usability expert. I already have people in my office. I can do it myself. I want actual users. So the best usability testing is by offering your own website visitors, hey, would you be willing to do some usability tests? We'll give you a gift certificate from our website for $25. Get 5, 6 of them, get on either a Skype call or GoToMeeting or any of those platforms. By the way, I mentioned some companies just because I use them. I don't have any actual affiliation with them. Get them to actually interact with your website and watch where they struggle. So, why do I mention all those? Because if the only tool that is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. That's the reason I like to look at the website from different angles. Each one of them provides lots of insights. We go through our website using all these different methods, and what do we discover? We discover there's different buckets of issues that we see, and I'll tell you what each one of those buckets is. Some of the buckets is what I call FRA, fix right away. Bugs on the website. I don't need to test the website. I'll give you an example. Have a recent client, decent size. They do about probably 70,000 visitors a month. But their conversion rate was less than 0.5%. And they're like, we can't figure this out. I'm like, okay, sure. Let me just do this. So we're walking through the expert review. I add items to the cart. I go through the checkout. It tells me to register. Sure, I'll register. Put in my email. Put in kind of a password that I use for all websites. Tells me password is weak. I change it. I have another stronger password. Put it. Password is weak. Third password weak. Fourth password weak. Fifth password. I'm just literally I put in a whole bunch of numbers. I don't know what the password is. It tells me it's weak. And I'm like, wow. So I call the client. I'm like, hey, I can't really figure out how to put a password. He's like, well, yeah, our developers just launched this about 6 months ago because they had a security breach. And I talked to the developer, and he's like, yes, this way we ensure that this security breach doesn't happen again. And I'm like, yeah, and you ensured also that your orders dropped tremendously in the past 6 months. No, you don't understand. I'm like, no, I do understand. I also come from a development background, so I can talk to developers really kind of and really communicate very strongly with them. So I'm like, okay, you gotta fix this. They just fixed it right away without us having to test or anything like that. And they saw their conversion rate go up. And the CEO calls me, he's like, this is magic. I'm like, really, it's not magic? This was actually silly. You've stopped sales because one of your developers thought he's trying to be too careful. So fix right away are the bugs that you find on the website. Lots of times, the second bucket is instrumentation. Everybody has Google Analytics installed or Omniture, any of those analytics packages. However, they're not configured correctly or not configured completely. We want to be able to track how every visitor interacts with every element on the website, every element, correct? So if you're just merely, this page has, yesterday had 1,000 visitors or 1,000 views, it's like, I don't care. Show me how they interacted with the page, how they clicked on every button, how that breaks down by mobile, by source traffic, by source medium. The third bucket is what we call research opportunities. Those are testing opportunities. Those where you're going to say, okay, well, we have something here. It's either a usability issue or a conversion issue, so we need to test this. And then the fourth bucket is what I call investigate further. We see a visitor behavior. We don't really understand it. We need to ask more questions before we start building a test or making a change. And again, how you look at an issue is just a matter of perspective. You make assumptions, and sometimes the visitors validate those assumptions, or they tell you you're full of crap. So you gotta, always kind of look at different ways to identify issues on the website. So we have our 4 buckets: fix right away, instrument, research opportunities, and investigate further. You move on to the next stage. By the way, this is the hardest stage, the very first stage, the scrutinize. This is the stage where you want to end up with at least probably if you have a good optimization specialist, between 100 to 300 issues on the website, identified and classified. So we move on to the next stage, which is the hypothesize. This is the result, for example, from the very first phase, the page, the experience, the item, how do we discover it, and the classification of the item. You want to prioritize different items. Where do I start? We had a client who hired McKinsey, big budget, spent I think $500,000 for a 1-month engagement with McKinsey. They can afford it. McKinsey came back with this amazing Excel sheet with 300 items. Fix it. And the client came to us and said, where do we start? We don't have unlimited resources on budget. And I'm like, well, you hire McKinsey. It's telling them that you have unlimited resources on budget. Okay, so you want to go through a process of prioritizing the items on the website. There are many different frameworks for prioritizing the different items. Let me see. Oh, I don't have a link to this. If you go to our website, invesp.com, go to the blog and just search prioritization. We have an Excel sheet that you can download. Each item is basically ranked using 18 different factors. You rank the items, and then it tells you need to start here. This is number 1, this is number 2, number 3. So again, it's invesp.com and /blog, and then you just search for prioritization. You can download that Excel prioritization sheet. I should have had a link to it over here. My apologies. Then you want to create hypotheses. Okay, so the first item, let's say we have a problem, and I'm just going to give a very simple, hypothesis, typical hypothesis, what you see. We don't have enough social proof on our homepage. So, that's the problem. The hypothesis is if we add social proof on the homepage, then our conversion rate is going to increase. That's kind of a typical hypothesis, correct? Yes? No? It's junk. Okay, this is what I tell people. I'm like, this is how, lots of times people say, well, it has to be hypothesis-driven testing or conversion optimization. But the reality of it, it's not a real hypothesis. This is, again, something you can teach a 12-year-old. Here's a model that you can use also for creating hypotheses. So there's some insights that we've collected from ourselves and our website. There's industry insights that we have. And then we have experimentation. Why are you saying that social proof really matters? What kind of uplift do you expect? Are you expecting a 12%, a 10% uplift in conversions when you do implement this? And lots of times when I tell people, I'm like, you gotta put what kind of expected uplift in your hypothesis. People are a little freaked out. It's like, oh man, you're setting expectations with the client that this is gonna generate an 8% and a 10% increase in conversions. Are you sure that you wanna do that? I always tell them, have you ever watched people playing, let's say, a soccer game or a basketball game, but they're not keeping, they're not keeping score? They're just throwing the ball to each other, correct? It's a lot different when they keep score. It becomes a lot more competitive. And it's the same thing with your hypothesis, correct? If you keep score in your hypothesis, everybody becomes a lot more competitive, including the client, because now the client team and your team and everybody has a vested interest in coming up with a new design that actually will beat the conversion rate by 10%. There's different models for creating hypotheses, but please don't go with the simple adding social proof is going to increase conversions. It doesn't work all too well. There are more advanced models. Just Google also hypothesis models. You then move on to the last stages. And I'm good on time. So then we take those hypotheses, we give it to our designers, and we say, okay, here's the idea. Now I want you to translate that hypothesis into a design. Now, lots of times I have this rule. We give the hypothesis to the designers. They come back with a design that has nothing to do with the hypothesis, or they fix 3-4 other things because they've always wanted to fix them. No, we're very focused on the hypothesis whenever we're going to do our testing. So go back to the drawing board. You want to make sure that your designs actually conform to the hypothesis that you are testing. You finish your designs, then you move on to the next stage, kind of the easy stage, by the way, which is where you do your QA. You make sure that you've prototyped it, making sure that you're not this is the implement stage, making sure that you don't introduce new bugs whenever you're gonna introduce this new design. Remember, your goal is to increase conversion rates, correct? Your goal is not to actually cause a drop in conversion. So you do very specific quality assurance, making sure that your designs are good. And then you do either usability testing, by the way, or A/B testing. Lots of times people find this very strange. They're like, you guys are an A/B testing company. I tell them, no. If you're looking for an A/B testing company, we're not the right match for you. Lots of times, we have smaller companies that come to us, and we tell them, listen, if I follow really good rules for A/B testing, you should never do conversion optimization. But that means you have to wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years to do conversion optimization. Your business depends on the leads that you get or the orders that you get. So sometimes you do usability testing, small pool. How many people do you think we need to validate whether a new design is better in a usability test? What do you guys think? Any idea? 5. 5 is good. 5 to 8. I like 5. You don't get any more insights, by the way. After 8, people are just kind of repeating the same insights. But whenever you're doing a usability test, also you gotta. It's not like, well, yeah, now they know how to use it. No, you gotta have very specific metrics. How long did it take people to complete the task in the previous design? How long is it taking them to complete the task in the new design? So time, time to complete. Task success ratio of 100, or 8 people that we gave the task to, the scenario. What is the percentage of completion in the back, in the previous design? What's the percentage of success in the new design? You're asking and measuring very specific criterias. Or you do A/B or multivariate testing. Before you do an A/B test, kind of just quickly, make sure that you calculate your sample size. How long do I need to run my test for, correct? What is the confidence level? Typically 95%. Here is the challenge, and I always want to explain this whenever you're doing A/B testing. Let's say you have a cart page that gets, I don't know, let's 10,000 visitors per day. You're going to run your A/B test, as an example, for 2 weeks. So how many visitors will run through the A/B test? 140,000, correct? Now, the reality of it, you're going to use the behavior of those 140,000 to determine a new design, correct? That you're going to deploy on the cart page. And now, how many people are going to see that? It's 10,000 multiplied, let's say, by a year. You're talking about, what are you talking about now? 4 million visitors. So using the behavior of 140,000 to determine the behavior of how people, and 4 million people are going to respond. You see the challenge? The behavior of 140,000 determine the results and the behavior of 4 million people. This is where this is challenging. This is where lots of people end up with false negatives or false positives. So you need to have a little bit of statistical background. And lots of times marketers don't understand statistics and they're not interested in statistics. But if you're going to do conversion optimization, you need to understand some of those numbers. There is software that does the calculation for you, but you need to understand what it means. Last thing is you do post-test analysis. I launched a test, I launched a design, it's won, it lost. What did I learn? We ask very specific questions. Let's see, so there's post-test analysis. What were the results? What did we learn? What are the next steps? There's sometimes where we launch a test and we're so sure it's gonna win. It's like, it's a guaranteed win, and like it doesn't win. It's like, really? Come on, what happened here? So you go back to the drawing board and you ask more questions. Why the results were not like what we expected? So that's extremely important to understand. Do you inflect? Do you change course? Do you continue testing? Sometimes we lose 1, 2, 3 times and we say, no, we are sure this is going to win. We just need to fine tune our test further. Who are some of the companies that are really successful when it comes to A/B testing? Netflix, 1,200 tests per year. On average, Booking.com, at any point in time, you have about 1,000 tests running. Facebook, you get on Facebook, as you're navigating through Facebook, you're probably in 10 different A/B tests that are running. Amazon did 20,000 A/B tests in 2017. Google did 100,000 tests. One of the interesting tests that we've kind of participated in the analysis of is the sign up button, correct? 4,000 shades of blue, to sign up on Google. Now, if you're Google, you get millions, tens of millions of visitors. You can do something like that. If one of our smaller clients come to me and ask that question, I tell them it's extremely silly. And to me, although I looked at the data, I wonder, if it was tested over a year time, if it really had the same kind of, I think it was an 8% uplift based on a specific shade of blue. If you're doing conversion optimization correctly, what you will have is you will have times where you have failed experiments. I would say about 35% to 40% of your experiments fail. About 35 to 45% of your experiments succeed, but small wins. You're talking about 3 to 5% uplift. However, you have big wins. I always tell people we're digging for oil whenever we're doing conversion optimization. Yes, we have the small wins and we like them and we celebrate them, but we're also looking for those big wins that the 20, 30% with 99% confidence. Those are the ones that actually change the company. If you want to do conversion optimization, eventually, remember that one client, the one time, the one-man operation that I told you about back in 2010, 2011, and now they have a full optimization team, conversion optimization. It's always really fun when a client had grown his CRO team to the point where they come to you and they're really where they challenge you. It's no longer like, well, let's do conversion optimization. I'm one man, I don't know, to like, well, here are the theories that we've had. Here's the hypothesis. Here's the statistical analysis. Here's how a team looks like. So there is typically somebody who's a conversion optimization specialist, a UX designer, a front-end developer, somebody who's going to actually implement the tests, and there is a customer research specialist. Now, sometimes, like, you might have an analytics or data scientist and a product manager or program manager. Okay. I always tell people, if you're going to do one thing that's extremely important, and I'm going to finish with this slide, make sure that you do a conversion rate audit on an annual basis. It's just like a health check. If you do those annual health checks after a certain age, it's unpleasant, but it can really save your ass. So you got to do them, correct? So one of the things that I highly recommend is doing conversion rates audit, whether we have a special offer for the conference attendees, but you can find also people who do conversion audits. Make sure that you identify the issues that you have on your website. I'm going to be outside. We have a tabletop. Thank you. Aaron is here. If you have any questions about CRO, usability, analytics, or A/B testing, come and talk to me. I hope that you guys found this useful. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And my email is there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Khalid. We have time for one or two quick questions about conversion. So I saw your hand first, Duncan. Yeah, just throw the...
Yes.
Thank you. So great talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You mentioned about rerunning tests and rerun validations. Do you have any challenges convincing clients to do that once you've found a successful test?
No, as a matter of fact, it's part of our process. And people always find this strange. So let's say we launch an A/B test with 4 variations, against the control, correct? For those of you who are not familiar with A/B testing, you come up with designs, correct? Here's my 2-3 other designs that I think will increase conversion rates. Then you use some A/B testing software to split the traffic. So let's say you have a control, which is your original design, and 3 other tests that you think will increase your conversions, then 4 designs, and you give 25% to each of them. And there's lots of more details. And then you see which test generated more leads, more conversions, more buys, whatever it is. We have a winner, correct? What do we do lots of times? We take that winner, and we take the control, and we run them against each other in a head-to-head match, even if we have a clear winner, by the way. So we tell the client, because like a winner could be a false positive. So we want to really make sure that we validate that. And lots of times it's about the process, correct? I mean, sometimes it's a little difficult at the beginning, but even like, we had this client that I mentioned, which actually the analysis was for that client, where we were so sure that their cart, we can improve their cart page, and we launched the test and it failed miserably. And it was actually a problem in our test, by the way, like the way we designed it. The way we went on an iPhone, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, they're like telling me to check out, and I'm like, I'm trying to check out, but it's not working. They're like, no, the button is different. You can't see it. I'm like, I don't see a button. They're like, it's there. So we had to go back to the client and say, hey, we screwed up. We got to rerun the test, And the second time was not successful. Now, on the third iteration, it actually succeeded. Ultimately, it's a partnership. We have to trust each other. We're not going to always succeed. Lots of times, I always tell people, I'm like, people, whenever they come to us to do conversion optimization, they want us to sell them gold. Dreams and big successes, but the reality of it is not like that. You'll have successes and failures. It's a partnership, and if we don't trust each other, we're not going to succeed.
Okay, we have one more question. Anyone from the back? Yes?
Throw it, it's more fun. I tried to do that, and I broke a glass in another conference, and it's like, ooh.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Siddharth.
Can you please closer to your mouth?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Siddharth. I have a product Notify Visitors, which does the complete CRO piece from heat maps, A/B testing, session recordings, hypothesis, etc. It's a software tool. We don't do strategy. It's a tool used by the agencies. When you talk of CRO, you didn't mention about certain things like personalization. Have you done personalization and related stuff which has resulted in higher conversion rates? And how was your experience overall in that?
Yeah, let me say something about this. The biggest challenge with the industry is loss of fad. Now, you've been there, done this for a while, so I was talking to a CMO at a large e-commerce company, and we do these contracts with universities where they do research for us, like kind of PhD students. And I was telling him, like, what are some of the topics that you suggest for 2019? And he said personalization. I told him, really? There's so much, so many studies. He's like, it's full of crap. I'm like, why? His name is, he was our hardest client. He was very hard on the team. He said, but he gives it to you, for real. He said, here's the problem with lots of the personalization studies. They're done by industry. They're not independently verified. And lots of the personalization, unless you have a humongous website with tens of millions of visitors, you cannot validate the data. If you look at the statistical analysis that takes place when it comes to personalization versus statistical analysis and A/B testing, it's like you're comparing, somebody in kindergarten versus a university. That's the reason I'm not really a big fan. I think personalization is important and it will help you. But I'll be very frank and I hope I don't offend anybody. I doubt that most websites will benefit from it in a way that you can prove, statistically with enough data. I've seen some of our clients who succeeded in it, but for the most part, it's okay. It's just like I always tell people, website speed. There's these metrics that people throw. If you improve website speed, I'm like, yes, if you have a page load time of 15 seconds, you have a horrible website, correct? You need to get it down to 5 seconds. Now, the fact, after 5 seconds, I'm from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, it's really going to be a huge change. We have one client that we've tested this extensively using kind of A/B testing. We saw a little bit, but not even at 95% confidence. We had to accept about 80% confidence. So yes, there's improvement. Some of it is about making the process easier for visitors and better and improving that experience. But statistically proving it is a bit difficult.
Okay, so thank you very much for the insights.
I'm going to be there. Sorry, I see some more questions, so I don't want to take more time.
Okay, maybe we can leave it to the very end.
I'll be glad to also. I'll be here.
We are trying to keep this to time. I'm sure it's important, and I will make time for it. Okay. So thank you very much, and let's give another round of applause to Khalid. All right, a former politician. Okay.